Mike Tindall's brutal put-down of Prince Harry reveals what the younger royals, especially Zara, Princess Anne's daughter, really think about the Sussexes.
The last time that Harry and Meghan were in the UK, and Tindall very publicly snubbed the couple then. Mike Tindall is done with Harry.
Mike Tindall, Princess Anne's son-in-law, stood up at the Hay Literary Festival this week and on the record, on the podcast's tape, mocked Harry by name. The line, in his exact phrasing, was Harry when he was fun. Past tense.
Mike Tindall just used the past tense, and Peter Phillips just sent the invitations. Last weekend in a small Welsh town, Mike Tindall walked onto a stage at the Hay Literary Festival and said 4 words about Prince Harry that the rest of the family hasn't quite said out loud yet. Harry when he was fun. Past tense.
Honestly, this is such great stuff. Mike Tindall has joked that he remembers Prince Harry when he was fun around 15 years ago.
The past tense is the smallest word in the sentence and the loudest. And while that joke was landing in Wales, 400 miles south, a small church in the Cotswolds was finalizing a guest list. Peter Phillips, the king's eldest grandson, is getting married on the 6th of June. The king is going. The Princess of Wales is going. Mike Tindall and Zara are going. Princess Anne is walking her son down a private aisle in a village called Kemble. And the man who stood beside Peter at the chapel where he himself would marry exactly 10 years later, that man isn't on the list.
He's getting married to a lovely Harriet, and Harry and Meghan have been snubbed. They've been pushed out.
This is a brutal snub. This is a wild slap in the face. Harry will be devastated. Peter has dumped Harry. It's the ultimate cancellation because it's a royal cancellation. It is a royal snub. It's mind-boggling that Harry wasn't invited. And it's absolutely true, they are husband and wife. But it's Harry who will be feeling this most keenly.
The 2 stories broke within days of each other. And if you set them next to one another, they are the same story. They are the family's verdict on the king's younger son, delivered once with a joke and once with a guest list. 2 registers, same conclusion. The cleanest way to understand what we just watched is to walk back through what they actually said, what they actually did, and the photograph from 2022 that nobody quite knew what to do with at the time, and that suddenly this week makes the rest of it impossible to ignore. Hay-on-Wye is a market town on the Welsh border, population about 1,500, known for a literary festival that draws a particular sort of audience, the kind of people who buy hardbacks and discuss them over flat whites.
And can you describe Harry now compared to the Harry you knew? How would you characterize Harry in 2026?
I think he's a nasty, spiteful liar. Thinks only of himself, terrified of Meghan, and that he wants to get the royal family switched out so he can get switched in and give Meghan the best job ever. I think he wants her to be queen. I think I've told you that before. But with Harry, you know, he's determined that everybody thinks that she is as amazing as he does, but he's got it all wrong.
Mike Tindall was on stage there last weekend with his 2 co-hosts from the rugby podcast he's been running since 2020, James Haskell and Alex Payne. The format was a live recording. The audience knew that. Mike, by his own admission on stage, also knew that. He told the room the producers had warned him backstage to stay off the subject of Prince Andrew that evening. He volunteered the warning, then he ignored it. The wedding anecdote came first. Mike was talking about his own 2011 wedding to Zara Tindall, the king's niece. He was teasing James Haskell about something Haskell had done at the wedding, and the comparison he reached for was Harry.
James Haskell, his friend, they were sort of fine and good friends. But when somebody mentioned Harry, boom, he's out. And that's what's happening. The royal family does not want Harry and especially Meghan around.
A lot of other people, Mike said, managed that way better than you. And then the 4 words. Harry, when he was fun. Now you have to remember who this man is. Mike Tindall is godfather to one of Harry's children's cousins. His middle daughter, Lena, born in 2018, the same year Harry got married, has Prince Harry as her godfather.
Mike and Zara Tindall were once very, very close to Harry. So close, in fact, that Harry was chosen as godfather to their second daughter, Lena. But the bottom line is now, according to the Daily Mail, that bond, that relationship between Harry and Mike and Zara is It's done.
The two families used to do Christmas together at Sandringham. Mike and Zara were both at Harry and Meghan's wedding at St. George's Chapel. This isn't a podcaster who never knew Harry. This is the man Harry trusted with the spiritual guidance of his goddaughter, telling a literary festival audience in 2026 that the version of Harry he liked is past tense. And then, on the same stage, on the same evening, Mike pivoted to Prince Andrew. The co-host joked that Mike had his own bedroom at Buckingham Palace. Mike's reply, opposite end to Andrew though. He delivered the line on the same day Thames Valley Police confirmed they had widened their misconduct investigation into Andrew to include alleged sexual offenses. He did not have to know the timing. The room did not need him to. The joke landed because everybody in it already knew.
Well, I mean, you got to think too about Andrew and all the teddy bear situations. Like, you probably want to be as far away from the massive teddy bear collection as you can, because that's a little odd. But yeah, it's a hilarious little jive. We all know what he's talking about, and it makes sense that he is able to sort of discuss these things in a fun and interesting way and give a little tidbit without going too far. And the reality is, sometimes the royals are funny, and there's things that you can poke at, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It shows that he has a sense of humor regarding what has been happening within the family, and sometimes in moments of stress, you need that funny bone to kind of get you through it.
Now hold that quote in your head. Hold the past tense, because while the room in Hay was laughing, a publication called Hello, the closest thing the royal watching world has to a newsletter of record, was running a different story. A friend of a different royal cousin was on the record. 11 words. Peter and Harry haven't spoken for several years and have simply lost touch. That's it. That's the explanation. No bitter feud, no briefing war, just the quiet language families reach for when they're tidying up. They've lost touch. The wedding itself is small. All Saints Church, Kemble, Cirencester. Saturday, the 6th of June. The bride is a woman called Harriet Sperling, an NHS nurse with a teenage daughter from a previous relationship.
And the reason why this is a brutal snub is because Peter Phillips and Harry have been very, very close for many years, going all the way back to 1997 when Diana passed. And he was sent to Balmoral to be an emotional minder, like a safeguarding figure for the boys. And they've been very close for the entirety of Harry's life. Much loved cousins, of course.
Peter and Harriet are both divorced, and they needed special permission from the vicar to marry in church because of it. The king is going. Queen Camilla is going. The Prince and Princess of Wales are going. Princess Anne and Captain Mark Phillips, the divorced parents of the groom, are going. Sir Timothy Lawrence is going. Mike and Zara Tindall are going. The Edinburgh family is going. 3 names didn't make the list: Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Sarah Ferguson, and Prince Harry. None of them on it. The royal correspondent Emily Andrews said this on the Reverend Richard Cole's podcast in the days after the story broke. "I think there are many other members of the family," she said, "who felt that Harry has behaved badly and unforgivably, not William."
And they're not letting them go. They're pushing back and pushing back. But, I think that's fair enough. If you don't like somebody and they've behaved badly, he thinks you just put it on the shelf. But it's childish. It's ridiculous.
The other members of the family, cousins, aunts, the people without titles and offices and HR-managed press lines, that is who has voted. Peter Phillips and Prince Harry have known each other since the day Harry was born. Peter is 7 years older. The two boys grew up in and out of each other's grandmother's houses. At Peter's first wedding, on the 17th of May 2008, at St. George's Chapel in Windsor, Harry was there with his then-girlfriend Chelsea Davy. He was 23. He looked by all the photographs that survive like he was having the best day of his year. The cousin he stood next to that afternoon is the cousin who is now closing the door. Here is the part of the story that gets harder to dismiss, because the May story is 4 years late. In June 2022, the late Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee weekend, there was a service of Thanksgiving at St. Paul's Cathedral. Harry attended. He sat in a row behind William and Catherine. The cousins were all there. The Tindalls, the Phillipses, the Beatrice and Eugenie cluster, the Edinburghs. The palace planned it as a unity photograph. British papers reported it the next day as one.
So the first thing I would do in terms of what she really thought about Meghan is to dismiss this, because I really don't think that the late Queen, after spending all those years of duty and service and not showing her emotions, would suddenly pitch up at the wedding of the grandson that she kind of doted on. I mean, she was very fond of Harry, and sit there with that face deliberately to show her disapproval. So I'm going to delete that one.
Body language analyst called Judy James, who writes regularly for The Express and is the closest thing British newspapers have to a credentialed reader of these moments, watched the photographs from the dispersal. She published an analysis that nobody quite knew what to do with at the time. It ran in express.co.uk on the Monday after the service, and it was widely reposted and then, as these things often are, conveniently forgot by everyone except, apparently, the family it was about. Here is what she wrote. Zara looks happy to chat and even turns fully to talk to Harry, who is looking anxious and keen to get into his own car. Mike, though, remains facing forward, looking about, and holding his order of service up with a look of awkwardness. In the end, he talks to Viscount Lindley, who turns his own back on Harry, cutting the two men off from Zara's conversation with Harry. That sentence is 4 years old. Look at it now and tell yourself the May story is a surprise.
That the lady who's getting married, Harriet Sperling, wouldn't want Meghan there at the wedding because if you remember, Eugenie had a wedding very soon after Harry and Meghan had a wedding, and Meghan ruined it by telling everyone that she was pregnant, and everybody was absolutely, thank you, how wonderful, how lovely, and Eugenie was very, very upset about it.
Mike Tindall, on a row of seats at St. Paul's Cathedral, holding an order of service up between himself and Prince Harry. Zara Tindall, the king's niece, doing the work of polite family conversation alone. Viscount Lindley, the queen's nephew, turning his back to seal the geometry of the moment. That photograph was a forecast. Nobody read it as one in time. The man holding the order of service up like a small paper wall is the man who walked on stage in Hay last weekend and used the past tense. He has been signaling for 4 years.
Well, this is a picture in one frame on the morning of the recording day. A Mike Tindall mug on the Hay Festival stage with Harry's name placed in the past tense and the disgraced former Duke of York in the same comedy vid.
I have looked at that 2022 photograph since the story broke, and the detail I keep coming back to is where Mike's right hand sits, not down at his lap, up against his chest, holding the paper wall steady. We just had no reason yet to read it as a verdict. And before anyone says a quip is a quip, a body language reading is opinion. An anonymous friend of the couple is an anonymous friend of the couple, and 4 points don't make a line. Hold on, because the convergence isn't one fact. The convergence is 4 dates and one direction. The 4th of June, 2022 at St. Paul's. Mike holding the order of service up like a small paper wall. Then the 10th of March, 2026 on Talk TV. Angela Levin watching Harry's hand move away from his wife's arm in a recent clip.
He was full on opening car doors for her as if she was the principal and he was security. That's not his job. It's actually probably making their security officials, it's making it more challenging for them to actually manage the people they're supposed to protect because he needs to do all these things for her, I think, to make her happy.
Add Hello's World exclusive in May, a friend of the bride and groom saying 11 words on the record. And finally, the Friday of Mike Tindall in Hay on Wye. 4 words on stage in past tense. Same family, same person at the center. 4 years, the same direction. One of those things on its own is noise. 4 of them lined up in the same direction is what a verdict looks like before anybody calls it that. Here is what I think the merger of these two stories is actually telling us. The institution, capital Y, the Palace Machine, has not formally said anything about Prince Harry's standing in the family. It doesn't have to. The institution isn't where this verdict lives. The verdict lives in what Mike Tindall says without a press release. It lives in who Peter Phillips invites without a public statement. It lives in what Princess Anne, who is one of the most respected workers in the building, has decided is acceptable at her son's wedding.
Mike Tindall, who actually has been very, very friendly with Harry, but he said at this book fair that Harry is no fun anymore. Now, Harry will be very upset because they were very good friends. Mike Tindall is married to Zara Phillips, who's the daughter of Princess Anne, and they don't want them around. They absolutely don't.
The people without offices are the people who actually decide what a family is. The biographer Angela Levin, who spent 15 months with Harry before he ever met Meghan, watched a recent appearance on television in March and said something on Talk TV that has not received quite enough attention. You see him, she said, moving his hand away from her because he doesn't want her to keep hanging onto his arm. It's too much, and he can't stand it. Levin is on the record on a credentialed broadcaster in March.
Yeah, I spent 15 months with him. He was lovely. He was good fun. He could get a bit annoyed, but he was lovely with the children who were from difficult families. He was fine to people who'd had bad effects from the wars. And he was nice. He was funny. He was very kind to me. We had nice chats. He could just get a little bit irritable, but that's a lot of people do if they're very busy. But overall, I got on with him very well. I liked him a lot.
Mike Tindall is on the record on a literary festival stage in May. 2 different people, 2 different rooms, watching the same man. Now slow down with me for a moment, because the cleanest way to feel what this verdict actually is to walk past 3 Saturdays. The first Saturday is the 17th of May, 2008, St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle. Castle. Peter Phillips, 29 years old, is marrying Autumn Kelly. Harry, 23, is in the pews with Chelsea Davy. Photographs from that afternoon show him laughing in a morning coat. The cousins have grown up together. Harry's brother is the best man at his own cousin's wedding the following year. Everything works. 10 years and 2 days later, on the 19th of May, 2018, same chapel, St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle. Harry is the groom this time. Meghan Markle is walking down the aisle. Mike and Zara Tindall are there. So is Peter Phillips. Everyone Harry stood beside 10 years earlier is now standing beside him.
It's a shocker. At this wedding, Harry's had no invite, reportedly.
No.
But it's very likely the King and William will be there.
I think they are intended to go, but we don't know yet. It's supposed to be a very quiet wedding. It's on June the 6th, but it is a second wedding for both of them, and sensibly they don't want a huge big wedding, but I think they might go. It depends actually if Princess Anne wants her brother to come along, but it's definitely not being asked, and she doesn't want them there, and that's very, very sensible. I think you don't want to start an argument.
And then a third Saturday, the 6th of June, 2026, All Saints Church, Kemble, in the Cotswolds. Peter Phillips, now 48, is marrying Harriet Spurling. The King is there, the Princess of Wales is there, Mike and Zara are there. Princess Anne is walking her son. The aisle, the family, the moment, all assembled. And Peter is not expecting the man who stood beside him 18 years ago. The man he himself stood beside 10 years ago. Same chapel doesn't quite capture it. Same chapel for the first two, a new church for the third, but the same family. The aisle they shared in 2008 has become the aisle that no longer makes room for him. That is what Mike Tindall said in 4 words on a stage in Wales. Peter Phillips said the same thing with an envelope that never arrived. And it's what the people without offices have been quietly deciding in their own way since at least 2022.
What does it mean for Harry's relationship with the royal family? Because Peter is very close to William, and they're all in England, and they're all royals, and it's very much Team Wales versus Team Sussex. And Team Sussex, I've got to tell you, is an increasingly lonely place.
It just took until this month for all of it to line up in the same week. What Mike said is what families say. What Peter did is what families do. The institution didn't issue a statement, didn't release a press line, didn't brief a courtier. Star Spotlight has watched this story long enough to know what a verdict looks like when it doesn't come with a press release. Mike Tindall has known Harry for 15 years. The 15 years are doing the talking. Drop your verdict below. Does Mike Tindall's joke land harder because he was there in 2018 or because he's still there in 2026? I read every single one. Hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who care about these stories. And subscribe, there's a lot more coming this week. The next chapter ships on Friday. The 2008 photograph that nobody has been able to look at the same way since Mike walked off that Hay Festival stage. You'll want to be here.